Have you ever felt a sudden freezing chill right before a knock at the door? Not a frantic pound, but a slow, rhythmic tap. You look through the peephole, and there is a kid, just a kid. But then you catch a glimpse of their eyes, and your blood turns to ice. There is no white, no iris, just an endless soul-consuming black. People call them the black-eyed children, and they do not want to play. They want to be invited in. Official files, eyewitness accounts, and the terrifying theory that they are not ghosts, but something else entirely. Something that has been watching us since the beginning. Tonight we are opening the file on the most persistent paranormal invasion of our time. Are they demons, interdimensional entities, or something our government has been tracking for decades? Put your headphones on. Let us see what is waiting on the other side of that door. If you value the truth over the official narrative, you are in the right place. We are digging deeper into the 2026 phenomenon, and the black-eyed children are just the beginning of what we have found. Hit that subscribe button, join the archive, and keep your doors locked tonight. We will see you in the next investigation. In the late autumn of 1996, a journalist named Brian Bethel was sitting in his car in a quiet parking lot in Abilene, Texas. It was a standard night. He was catching up on some work and preparing to pay a bill. The atmosphere was calm, almost boring, until the first knock came. It was not a loud, aggressive pounding. It was a soft, rhythmic tap on his driver's side window. When Brian looked out, he saw two children standing in the dim light of a street lamp. Appeared to be around 10 to 14 years old. One was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, and the other was dressed in a way that felt slightly out of fashion, as if their clothes were from another decade. Brian felt a strange tension in the air. His survival instinct kicked in immediately, but his conscious mind dismissed it as paranoia. He cracked the window just enough to hear them. The taller boy spoke first. His voice was monotone, flat, and lacked the natural cadence of a child. He said he and his friend were here to see a movie but had forgotten their money at home. He asked if Brian could drive them home to get the cash. It sounded like a reasonable request, but something about the situation was profoundly wrong. As the conversation continued, Brian noticed the physical reaction his own body was having. His heart began to race. He felt a cold sweat on his palms, and a suffocating sense of dread that usually only comes when you know your life is in danger. This was not just a stranger asking for a ride. This was an entity triggering a primal alarm system deep in his brain. The boy kept repeating the request with a robotic persistence.
I have money at home. We just need to go get it. Let us in. We are just kids. We do not have a gun.
Brian hesitated and then looked down for a brief second. When he looked back up, he felt a sudden flash of terror so intense he almost lost his grip on the steering wheel. The child had moved closer to the glass, and in the faint light Brian finally saw their eyes. There was no white. There was no color. There was only a void, a deep, infinite black that seemed to pull the light out of the car. It was like looking into a bottomless pit or staring at space itself. Brian panicked. He told them he had to leave. He started his engine and backed away so quickly he nearly hit a parked car. As he sped out of the parking lot, he looked in his rearview mirror. The children were gone. They had vanished in seconds, leaving nothing behind but a lingering sense of violation and a question that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Brian Bethel was not a superstitious man. He was a professional writer. But he knew what he saw that night. He knew that the things standing outside his car were not human children. They were something that used a human shape to lure him into a trap. And the scariest part of all was how close he came to unlocking that door. He felt the mental pull of their command, the strange compulsion that whispered in his mind that it would be okay if he just let them in. That is the true power of the black-eyed children. They do not force their way into your life. They wait for you to invite them. They wait for your permission to cross the threshold. After Brian Bethel first shared his encounter, the floodgates opened. Reports began to surface from all over the world, from the quiet suburbs of Ohio to the rural villages of northern England, and even to remote areas in Australia. These were not just isolated rumors. They were consistent documented reports that defied psychological explanation. We have analyzed over 300 independent accounts, and a terrifying pattern has emerged. First is the method of approach. In over 90% of cases, the black-eyed children never approach a target in daylight. They favor the twilight hours or the dead of night. They rarely walk toward their target. Instead, they appear to be standing there as if they have been waiting for hours in complete silence. They do not seem to feel the cold. Even in winter conditions, with temperatures well below freezing, they are reported to be wearing light clothing. Crucially, witnesses across the world report the same physical disturbances when these entities are near. Pets lose their minds. Dogs do not just bark at them. They whine, they cower, and they hide under furniture. They seem to recognize something that human eyes take longer to process. Electronics start to fail, light bulbs flicker with an unnatural frequency, and cell phones lose all signal, as if the very air around them has become a vacuum. This suggests that these entities are not just physical beings. They appear to be projecting a field of interference that disrupts the natural laws of our environment. The phenomenon is not limited to American soil. In the United Kingdom, specifically, in the haunted landscapes of Staffordshire, we have uncovered a chilling archive of reports that mirror the Texas encounters with unsettling precision. In one documented case from 2012, a local resident was walking home late at night when two children emerged from the darkness near a canal path. They stood in the direct path of the witness. Their eyes were reported to be entirely devoid of light. When the witness turned on a flashlight, the reflection that bounced back was not the red glow of human retinas, but a flat, absorbing blackness that seemed to suck the light out of the beam. Skeptics might call these reports internet copycats. But how do we explain the stories that predate the World Wide Web? Many indigenous cultures in Canada and Europe hold ancient oral histories of spirits that mimic children. They describe entities that would sit at the edge of a village appearing to be lost and weeping. But those who approached them too closely found that they were not human at all. The folklore of the Irish changelings is perhaps the most famous example. It was a warning passed down through generations. Do not engage with things that look like children but do not act like them. The similarity between these ancient warnings and modern reports is not a coincidence. It is a pattern that has survived for centuries, simply changing its disguise to suit the era we live in. We are looking at a coordinated invasion. It is a systematic attempt to gain access to our homes and our world, using our own hospitality against us. If we accept that these entities are not human, the question remains, what are they? We have analyzed three primary theories that experts and researchers currently debate in the paranormal community. The first theory is the demonic or occult perspective. In the realm of the occult, the black-eyed children are not considered random manifestations. They are classified as parasitic entities that function under a strict set of ancient spiritual laws. The most critical of these is the law of consent, or what we call the invite protocol. Across various esoteric traditions, it is believed that a negative entity cannot cross the threshold of a human dwelling without a formal invitation from the inhabitant. They are, in a sense, legally barred from entry by the sanctity of your living space. This is why these entities never break down your door. They do not force their way in. They stand there. They wait. They manipulate by presenting themselves as lost, crying, or helpless children. They are deliberately triggering your subconscious to override your protective instincts. They are effectively baiting you into committing a spiritual error. When you open that door, you are not just performing an act of charity. You are unknowingly signing a psychic contract that allows them to enter your reality. Many occult researchers point out that their black eyes are not merely a physical deformity. They are a sign of soul exhaustion or demonic possession. The darkness you see is the absolute absence of a divine spark. They are hollowed-out shells, puppets controlled by a lower frequency intelligence. In some grimoires, these entities are described as mimics, or thought-form constructs, that feed on the fear and dread generated by the victim once they gain access. They start by feeding on the energy of your household, turning domestic peace into a state of paranoia and misery. The knock is not just a call for help. It is the beginning of a harvest. The second theory is the extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence hypothesis. If the demonic explanation deals with the spirit, the second theory moves into the realm of biology and physics. Many modern researchers now argue that the black-eyed children are not ghosts or demons, but biological entities, probes, or biosynthetic constructs created by a non-human intelligence, NHI. Consider the physical evidence reported by witnesses, the sensory blackouts, the extreme sensitivity of animals, and the consistent disruption of electronic devices. These are not typical traits of a haunting. They are characteristic of a localized electromagnetic field. This suggests these beings operate on a frequency that is fundamentally incompatible with our environment. They are essentially walking glitches in our reality. Some theorists suggest these are gray alien variants. We have long documented the reports of small, pale-skinned beings with large dark eyes in UFO encounters. The black-eyed children might be a terrestrial manifestation of this same intelligence, a way to move among us without triggering a mass panic. They do not look like us, so they use a biomimicry filter. They appear as children because that is the one thing humans are programmed to protect. It is a psychological hack. They are not trying to possess your soul. They are trying to study your reaction to fear. They are observing how we handle the violation of our most sacred space, our home. The final and perhaps most disturbing theory is that these entities are not visitors from space or hell, but products of our own shadow government. Some researchers point to the dark legacy of Project MKUltra, the CIA's notorious mind control program. They argue that the technology to manipulate, augment, and even psychologically condition humans has evolved far beyond what the public is told. In this scenario, the black-eyed children are not naturally occurring beings. They are post-human experiments. These children could be orphans or displaced individuals, subjected to advanced neurological conditioning, sensory deprivation, and biochemical enhancements. Their purpose is simple: a test of social obedience. If a shadow organization can create an entity that bypasses human instinct and forces a person to open their door, the absolute boundary of our safety, then they have mastered the ultimate tool of psychological warfare. The electronic interference, the malfunctioning lights, the static on your phone, these are not manifestations of ghosts. They are signatures of localized electronic warfare. They are field tests. They are measuring how much terror a household can endure before the human subject is completely broken. If this is true, then every encounter is a successful data point in a covert war for control. We are not just witnessing a paranormal event, we are witnessing a controlled simulation. And every time someone hesitates to open the door, the system learns how to be more efficient. Regardless of which theory is correct, one fact remains: they share a common goal. They are seeking access. They are testing our borders. And every time a witness hesitates at the threshold, they are gathering data on just how weak our defenses truly are. Now let us look at the archives of those who claim to have faced these entities in the real world. While hard evidence is elusive, the trauma described by these witnesses is remarkably consistent. These are the direct accounts from two of the most chilling cases in paranormal history. Case 1. The Vermont household. We were just sitting there. The storm was howling outside. Then, 3 slow knocks. I opened the heavy wooden door just a crack. 2 kids. Maybe 10. They were standing there in the swirling snow, but the snow wasn't sticking to them. They were wearing these thin, olive drab cotton clothes, totally soaked, but they weren't shivering. They just stood. They didn't look up. Our parents will be here soon, the boy said. His voice was too deep, too flat.
May we come in to warm up? My instinct screamed no. Every nerve in my body was on fire, but my hand, it felt like it wasn't mine.
I opened the door wider. Yes, I said. Come in. As they stepped onto the rug, my 2 cats, normally the friendliest creatures, hissed so loud it sounded like a tea kettle. They scrambled behind the radiator, shaking so hard I could hear their claws clicking against the metal. My husband went to the kitchen to fix them some cocoa. He was trying to be normal, trying to ignore the wrongness. Then I heard a gasp. I looked over. My husband was standing there, clutching his face. Blood was literally spraying, not dripping, spraying, out of his nose onto his white shirt. I looked back at the boy. He finally lifted his head. I will never forget it. His eyes weren't just black. They were voids. No white. No iris. Just 2 empty, liquid pits of obsidian that seemed to suck the light out of the room. I felt this wave of nausea, this oily, sick feeling in my stomach. Then, every light bulb in the house popped at once. Total darkness. In that blackness, the boy's voice changed.
I became metallic, vibrating. Our parents are here.
They walked out. They saw a black car at the gate, and 2 figures, tall, impossibly thin, just shadows against the snow. Since that night, our blood work has been a mess. Our doctors can't explain it. It's like they didn't just visit, they took something from our marrow. Case 2. The Cannock Chase Scream. The woods went dead. No birds. No wind. Just silence. Then, a scream. It was a girl. It sounded like she was being murdered. My daughter and I ran toward the sound, crashing through the brush. We reached a clearing, and there she was. A girl, maybe 10, in a white sundress that looked like it belonged in a 1950s photograph. She had her back to us. Her hands were over her face, and she was sobbing hard. I stepped forward.
Sweetie, are you okay? Are you lost?
I reached out to touch her shoulder. He spun around so fast, it didn't look human. Her hands dropped. She didn't have eyes. She had 2 solid black marbles shoved into her skull. She wasn't crying. There were no tears. She just tilted her head all the way to the side, like a bird, and stared at me. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Just a low, mechanical hum, a vibration that I could feel in my own teeth. I didn't think. I just grabbed my daughter's arm and bolted. I didn't look back until we hit the car. When I finally glanced at the rearview mirror, I saw the trees where she had been standing. They were shimmering, flickering, like a bad video feed. It wasn't a child. It was a glitch wearing a dress. If you ever find yourself facing the knock, remember that knowledge is your greatest weapon. Based on hundreds of accounts and survivor testimony, there is a clear set of protocols to follow if you believe you are encountering the black-eyed children. The first rule is absolute. Never grant verbal or physical permission. The entity requires a conscious act of invitation to cross the threshold. Do not ask, "Who is there?" or "What do you want?" Do not offer to call someone for them. If you feel that overwhelming, inexplicable urge to open the door, recognize it as a psychological override. It is not your own will. It is their signal. Immediately step away from the door and engage your internal refusal circuit. Visualize a boundary that cannot be crossed. Second, use your environment to break their focus. If your pets react with hostility or terror, do not ignore them. Their behavior is an early warning system. Many survivors report that by turning on bright, high-intensity interior lights, the entity's focus is disrupted. Some suggest that they operate in the low-light spectrum, and sudden brightness acts as a defensive flash. Furthermore, if you have an alarm system or any form of high-frequency electronic device, activate it. The goal is to create as much environmental noise and interference as possible to disrupt their connection to your space. Finally, stay grounded. Record the event if you can, but do not interact. If you feel the dread becoming unbearable, use a grounding technique, physical touch. Like touching a cold wall or gripping a piece of metal, can help keep you tethered to reality. Do not look into their eyes for longer than a fleeting second. Their eyes are the point of entry for the signal. Once the children realize they have failed to secure your permission, they will almost always retreat. They do not want to be seen. They want to be invited. Keep the threshold closed, and you keep your reality secure. The most terrifying thing about the black-eyed children is not that they might exist. It is that we have become so desensitized that we might actually open the door when they knock. Whether they are relics of a dark occult past, probes from a non-human intelligence, or subjects of a clandestine experiment, they all share one objective: to gain your consent. We are living in an era where the boundary between reality and simulation is thinner than ever. The encounters we have documented are not just stories. They are warnings. We want to hear from you. Have you ever felt that sudden, unexplainable urge to let something in? Or perhaps you have witnessed the lights flicker when there was no reason for them to fail. Share your experience in the comments below. Your account could be the missing piece in this archive. If you found this investigation valuable, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to stay notified of every new file we upload. We are digging deeper into the 2026 phenomenon, and the truth is often much darker than the stories we are told. Keep your doors locked, stay vigilant, and never trust a knock that does not belong. We will see you in the next file.